Hello, hello. Welcome to the Raise the Bar webinar. We're going to share some content about the marketing maturity model, something that we've been doing for a couple of years already in customer success here at DESelect. And at the end of the webinar, you can submit your own assessment, just so we can share with you where you are and share some best practices, but we will leave that for the end. Before that, we will explain what's this all about. Okay, I think we can get started. So let's just do it. We'll start with a quick agenda just to recap what we're going to do today. So first of all, we will do some introductions. What's DESelect in case you don't know it yet. Then we will go to the marketing maturity model. So what's this service about? What have we done with it? What's the value you can get from it? What are the lessons that we got from when we started to roll this out with our own customers? We will also give an overview of what we do here at Customer Success. The marketing maturity model is just one of the many tools we have to try to make customers successful here at DESelect. And finally, as I was saying, we will share the link so you will be able to take the assessment, and we will have a follow-up where we can guide you a bit through best practices and where to go from where you are right now. For those of you that don't know me, by the way, I'm Edu. I'm the head of Customer Success here at DESelect. I worked previously as a consultant for many years back in Deloitte, and now I've been working with DESelect for 3 years, and happily leading the customer success team. But let's start with who we are as a company. So if you don't know us, DESelect is what we call a marketing optimization platform. So we have a set of solutions inside Salesforce Marketing Cloud that help marketeers with their day-to-day in many fronts, right? So here you can see that we have 3 products integrating the platform. We have DESelect Segment, that is our segmentation solution to avoid having to code with SQL to, let marketeers build their segments without needing technical resources. We also have DESelect Engage, which is our saturation control and prioritization solution, where you can create your own prioritization and saturation rules. And Engage will make sure that you don't go over those saturation limits that you set up, and we'll make sure that customers receive the most important messages for them. And finally, we have DESelect Search, which is a free solution. I know as an ex-consultant, but I also know a lot of consultant friends that really love this solution, because if you don't know where you store a data extension, you can easily find it without having to go folder over folder in Email Studio. So again, you can check it out. It's absolutely free. It's there in the App Exchange. And when it comes to DESelect, again, the company was founded in Belgium, but we expanded pretty fast to Austin, Texas as well. So now we have 2 offices in the USA, also in Belgium, right? And we have some remote folks like myself working from Spain. So we're all over the globe. We also work with great customers. We have some here, Volvo, Morgan Stanley, Cornell University, also some customers here in the chat already. So that's great to see. And that's basically who we are, who's DESelect, right? Let's move on now to the topic itself, right? To the marketing maturity model and how we started. So just to give you a bit of context of why we started with this project, it's because a couple of years ago, we noticed that customers, when they started with Marketing Cloud or with DESelect or with both really, they have the same questions, right? They all wanted to know, am I applying the best practices? What am I missing? What are my competitors doing? But also what are other companies in general doing, right? Just to make sure they were optimizing their day-to-day for the capacity of Marketing Cloud. Here, because we are a partner of Salesforce, the success of DESelect and Marketing Cloud is closely related, right? So it's in our best interest that customers are successful in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. And that's why we started to provide this service to try to see where you are in Marketing Cloud and how can DESelect be an asset for you and can help you go to the next step. And when we were analyzing the kind of initiatives customers were doing to improve their day-to-day, they were always divided or grouped in one of these 2 axes that we have here. On the one hand, we have automations, which is related to improving the day-to-day of marketeers, right? The day-to-day of their teams, making sure they were not doing repetitive tasks, making sure they were able to automate heavy processes, just so building campaigns on the day-to-day and building journeys wasn't a nightmare and was easy, right? So that's where we group, let's say, the internal improvements, if you will. Is your data model accessible? How many data automated processes you have? Have you built templates or a custom data models that is easier to use for your marketeers, right? Those efforts were grouped inside the automation axis. And then we have the personalization axis, which is basically the efforts of trying to improving the experience of your customers, of the people that receive your communications. And that's where we group all the initiatives related to making sure you send the right content at the right time, making sure you don't saturate your customers and that you track the behavior of your customers and that alter your strategy. Once we have these two verticals, these two groups of initiatives, what we did was just create this diagram here where you can see the vertical axis are the automation efforts, the x-axis are the personalization efforts, and then we can group customers based on how mature they are in these two verticals, right? So starting from the bottom left, you can see Salesforce Marketing Cloud Explorers. So customers that are just starting with Marketing Cloud, they're setting the foundation of the tool really, and they're checking where to go from here, right? So they're not mature in any of the two axes yet. On the top right, we have marketing factories. So basically, they're very solid automating processes, but there lack some personalization efforts. We will discuss later where we normally see customers and what's the journey they follow through these quadrants. On the bottom right, we have marketing boutiques. That's basically the opposite, right? Customers that focused first on making a great experience for their customers, even if that means spending more resources, more manual resources from the team, as they don't have automated processes yet. And then, of course, we have customers with advanced personalization and advanced automations that are Salesforce Marketing Cloud and DESelect most of the time experts, right? They're making the most out of both solutions. It doesn't mean if you're in the top right quadrant, there are not improvement points for you. There's always new things you can try. But at least we group it like this because it's quite simple to know, okay, where do you want to go next and so on, right? So here we want to pause for a minute. Let's do a quick poll. Based on what I've said, here you can see in a nutshell the definition of the 4 quadrants. We want to know, where do you think you are right now? Where do you think your company is? So we will start now a poll. You should see it in a minute, but it would be quite interesting, apart from filling out the poll, if you share in the chat why you think you're in each quadrant. So if you think you're a marketing factory, why that is, what are you missing maybe from what you've heard? Where do you want to go? If you have any of those insights, that would be super interesting. In the meantime, let me try to, okay, I see the poll is already live. That's amazing. I see we have 3 answers saying Marketing Cloud Explorers. That's all right. You're just new to Marketing Cloud, starting the journey. That's great. Actually, I think that's the most exciting situation probably because you have a lot to improve, right? See some customers are saying Marketing Cloud experts. That's amazing. That's great. Again, if you can share here in the chat why you think you're in those quadrants. Maybe if you're an explorer, not really, because that's quite evident, right? But if you answer anything different, I see some people answered marketing boutique. That's quite interesting. So if you can share a bit your experience, that would be amazing in the comments. So we can maybe pick it up and discuss it a bit. I'll give a couple seconds just so you can write down in the chat. Okay, I see some people didn't reply yet. So again, where do you think you sit? What we're going to see next, again, just buying a bit of time in case you want to explain why you're in the quadrant you've answered. What we're going to explain next is, where do customers go from Salesforce Marketing Cloud Explorers? And what are normally our recommendations? We don't give generic recommendations. Normally, we wait until we know you a bit better to be able to provide examples. Okay, I see. You can see the results now. So we have 4 Marketing Cloud Explorers. We have 1 boutique and 2 experts. Thank you for the answers. Again, I'm going to move on, but if you want to write down in the chat why you think you're in one of these quadrants, that would be super interesting. You will see in a minute why, but it's always very, very interesting to see what's your read basically on these quadrants and why you think you're in one quadrant or another. There's a lot of subjective here. Each person understands being advanced in one of these 2 axes completely different. So if you mind sharing, that would be amazing. Okay, moving on. Once you complete the assessment, what do we do from there? Well, normally we share something like this. So first, on the left, you can see we share industry trends. So you will be able to see where you sit compared to other players in your industry, which is always very interesting. And again, it was one of the most common or repeated questions we had a couple of years ago. And also we will be able to discuss what's your growth pattern, right? Like where to go from where you are right now. Here, we normally recommend, okay, imagine you answer and you sit here. We will ask you, where do you want to go? Do you want to grow in the automation axis? Do you want to grow in the personalization axis? It's better to split these 2 challenges, of course. So focus on one and then move on. Once you do that, because we have customers in almost every quadrant. You will see it in a minute. We will be able to share some best practices of some lessons we've seen from those customers that are maybe a bit more advanced in the marketing cloud journey than you are. And that will hopefully help you. That it's very hands-on examples. Yeah, that's something you can apply from day one. I see Steve answer, we would like to grow in the automation and personalization area. Yeah, that's normally the goal, right? Go up, right? So basically improving both axes. Because they're quite differentiated efforts, normally we focus either on one or another, at least for a couple of months, just to have some initiatives going, for example. And once you have the automations nailed out, then we can switch and focus on personalization. That's normally what we've seen working with customers. Okay, Steve said that you only create data extension lists so far that are daily updated, nothing fancy. Okay, thank you for the answer, Steve. And again, here, it's quite interesting to see that, because what for Steve is just nothing fancy and quite obvious, right? For other customers might be a bit more advanced. So we're going to see how, and it's very interesting to see this when you reply to the survey the first time and then you reply a year from now, your perception of your own maturity in automation and personality and personalization might change, right? Because of the examples we've shared, or because of the questions you saw in the survey make you reflect on the things you do on the day-to-day. And we've seen some customers after a year going a bit down, not because they're worse in that axis, but because their perception of what they're doing is different. We will get there in a minute, as I'm saying. Okay, great. So let's share first a bit of aggregated data, just so you see the picture of the answers that we have collected so far. So here you can see where the different customers that we're working with, and we started sharing this survey with Seed right now. So you can see it's quite dispersed. It's all over the place. But it's very interesting to see how there are not a lot of marketing boutiques. So I'm very interested about the person that replied that they think they are a marketing boutique, because that's not normally the channel or the path you follow towards being an expert. Normally, what we've seen from customers is, obviously you start here as a Marketing Cloud Explorer, right? And the first thing you do, at least, again, what we've seen in the customers we work with, is you go up. You improve your automation efforts. So you maybe don't change what you send to your customers, but you start optimizing how you deal with that work internally, right? And you start minimizing the amount of work you have to set in repetitive tasks. Once you free up that time for other things, right? Because you have more things that are automated, then we've seen customers going from Marketing Factory to the right as a DESelect Marketing Cloud Expert. So again, normally what we've seen with customers is that you first go up before going right in these quadrants. But yeah, there are also some customers that start as marketing boutiques, maybe because in their industry, personalization is key. So they need to start focusing on that, even if it takes a lot of resources, just to make sure they improve the experience of the customer before they can think about making the day-to-day operations more efficient. So again, very interesting, very different from one another. And in terms of aggregated data per industry, this is what we've seen. Again, based on the answers we get, this doesn't mean that all hospitality customers are there. It means that from our perspective, from what we've seen so far, this is where they sit. And again, here it's very interesting to see how each industry think about this axis, right? So for example, taking banking as an example, when we first were creating these slides, we were a bit surprised as ourselves as well, that industry, right? And data models tend to be very complex there. And sometimes automating processes is not so easy or not so obvious as other industries. And also in banking, they're used to work with a lot of modern, let's say, technology and ways to segment data. So it might be that their perception of what mature automation is completely different from other industries because they've seen more or they're more familiar with a more advanced technology, right? So again, just an example of how your own perception can make a difference here in the answers that you provide. In any case, it's interesting to see, and it's interesting to process that data internally and see how to progress. Sorry. Just as a friendly reminder, you can drop any question you need here in the chat. More than happy to stop and answer any question you have. Okay, great. But what do customers get when they fill out the maturity model survey? Well, when you complete the assessment, you will see a quite fast assessment. It's like 10 or 15 questions at most. We will send you a report where you can see where do you sit compared to others, right? And we divide this in four slides or four groups. The first group is you versus your industry. So here's an example of a customer where you can see they sit here, and the other dots are the different customers that replied in this same industry. It's normally very interesting to check the average of that industry, right? Because the other dots, each company again can have complete different teams, complete different setups. So it's hard to compare against one specific dot. But it's normally very interesting to compare yourself against the average of the industry. So in this case, you can see this customer was more advanced in automation efforts than the average customer, but was a bit behind the personalization efforts for their company. The next axis that we check, or the next group of customers against we compare you with, are other customers with the same seniority. So here you can see it's DESelect specific. So normally what we say is, as I've said before, normally customers try to address the same problems, and most of the times in the same order, right? When they onboard in DESelect. So if you're 3 years in, or you've been using the solution for 3 years, you're on a stage solving some examples or some use cases that maybe on year one you didn't think of. So here what we do is compare you versus other customers cross-industry that have the same seniority as you in DESelect, right? Again, there are a lot of efforts here that are cross-industry, like automating your data model, making your data more easy to manage for the day-to-day marketeer, or understanding the customer behavior. All those are challenges that every industry has. So that's why we think this analysis is normally very interesting as well. And lastly, we compare you against your DESelect edition. So again, if you're a DESelect customer, the features that you have available, if you're, for example, a Plus customer versus the editions that you have, the features you have available as an advanced customer, can make a difference in the problems that you're going to try to solve, right? With DESelect at least. So again, we do this comparison just to make sure you're compared against, customers that could be in the same situation as you are. Here, again, the interesting bit is, imagine you're this red dot again. If you want to move to personalization access, you can see here we have 4 or 5 customers that are already experts with your same edition, maybe with your same seniority, maybe in your same industry. So what we are going to do is try to share some lessons that we've learned from those customers, or kind of try to understand where you should focus your efforts if you want to move the needle toward that. And then the last one, this one will take a bit more time, but another thing we always do is refill this survey either every 6 months or every year to see if you're growing or not, right? And here's where what I was mentioning before, it's quite easy to see and understand. You can see that in the previous year, the customer was here, and in the latest reply, they're here, which means they have improved in their personalization efforts, but apparently they have gone worse in the automation efforts. How's that possible? Well, what we've seen again is that once you start understanding how other players are working, once you start seeing the best practices that we share in these exercises, maybe what you thought was advanced automation is not so advanced anymore. You see cutting edge customers doing cooler stuff and you think, okay, I'm not there yet. What you scored like an 8 or a 9 in terms of maturity a year ago might be a 7 or a 6 this year. So that's quite normal. And it's also something we expect, right? The idea is that you're not on the top right every single time because you're an expert and you think you don't have anything to learn. So this also shows you new things you can learn and you can apply from other customers. Okay, awesome. So again, this will be the first step, the first thing you get once you fill out the survey. What next? Well, first, again, we share the results. You see where you're placed in the quadrant compared to others. And that's where we have a conversation asking, was this the result you expected? Most of the time, the answer is yes. And then you can start thinking about custom recommendations, right? Because depending on where you are or when you see other players, it could be quite easy to see, okay, it looks like I have more growth opportunities in the automation axis or in the personalization axis. And that's where, again, after having that conversation with you, we share some relevant use cases for you guys. These are very hands-on examples. So it's not like generic recommendations, like segment your data extensions more or create more personalized campaign. No, it's just stopping and sharing real examples we've seen in other customers or best practices we have applied somewhere else. And depending on the package that you have from DESelect, if you, for example, have hypercare, we can even help you implement it for you, right? So we can get our hands dirty and really help you get to to that next stage. Finally, what we're going to do is repeat this exercise again every year, every 6 months. It really depends on the progress that we see as well. And we will ask you, where do you think you are now? Do you think you improve? What are the next steps for you? Steve was saying before, sometimes you want to start with automation and then 6 months from now you say, okay, I'm good. I want to tackle personalization now, right? So we want to make sure we're there for you when that switch happens. Okay, just to share a real example, as I said, the slides you have seen above are from a customer, from an anonymous customer, of course, and just so you know what happened with them. So we fill out the survey the first time. You can see they were there, kind of on the very close to being an expert, right? So they were an expert in automation for sure, but they were lacking some personalization efforts. So after we did this survey, it was clear for them, okay, we want to go to the right, we want to nail the personalization bit. And then we sit down and we did a workshop where we share 3 or 4 use cases of things we've seen in other customers working pretty well, right? And also when we tap in and understood what they were doing and how they were doing it, we saw that they were so advanced in automation because IT was leading the efforts there in trying to automate a lot of their campaigns, a lot of their processes. But it meant that marketeers didn't have that much access to the data because it was structured in a very technical way, right? So what we did was share some best practices on how to use the select segment to improve that, to change that. And they started to implement some of the admin features that we have, like predefined relations that basically connect data extensions automatically. So you don't need to know how the data extensions are connected. Data sets, so they can create groups of data extensions that have a business meaning for marketeers. And templates, marketeers could start from there, and they were more autonomous in generating campaigns, in testing things out. And it also speed up the whole process, the end-to-end process of generating a campaign. After a year, we repeat the same exercise and we ask the same people, where do you think you are now? And it was great to see that they were over there. So in this case, they felt they improved both in automation and personalization efforts, which is amazing, of course. But that's not the end of the story. So what we do there is, okay, you think you're here, that's amazing. But there's a lot of improvement here, right? So again, let's sit down together. Let's see how we can make sure you keep progressing. And again, if your perception of what's automation changed, let's make sure we're up to date with best practices there. Okay, awesome. We're getting close to the end. So hang tight if you want to do the free assessment. We're a couple of slides away. But before that, I want to also share what do we do as customer success, right? As I was saying at the beginning, this is only one of the many tools customer success has to make a customer successful. So when we start with a customer, just to share what's the journey, normally what we follow with customers is first we start with the installation. Of course, it's quite easy to install. It's normally a 30-minute call, or even, we can do it on our own if we have a user in your environment. That's a different story. After the installation is done, we do a kickoff session where we define your customer success criteria. So basically, what does success mean for you, right? What are you trying to achieve with DESelect segment? That's a different exercise than the maturity model, but it's also a very interesting one, just to make sure we address the pain you may have from day one. After doing that, we do the onboarding training. Very important to mention here, that onboarding training is based on your data. It's based on your real examples. Instead of doing a generic training on how to use the tool, what we do in the kickoff session is also try to understand what are the use cases you're trying to address today, or maybe you cannot address today. And in the onboarding training, we take one of those examples and we build it with DESelect. The idea is that you will learn to use the tool in your own terms, right, with your own data extensions, which is a completely different story. And also you will end up with something that you can use from day one. So you can start implementing the data extension or whatever we build together in your campaigns right away. You can copy paste it and work from there if needed. As I was saying, we have an optional service that is hypercare. With this hypercare, we will as I was saying, we will get our hands dirty. So once you fill out, for example, the marketing maturity model, if you don't have time or you don't know how to go, or you don't know how to do one of the use cases we're proposing, we will make sure to do it with you, right? And finally, we will do an evaluation. After 1 year, we will evaluate how you're doing in the tool, if you're happy with it, if you're missing anything, just to make sure we can improve for the year ahead. And finally, you will get support all year long. So we have a ticket system where you can just log any questions you have, and we will provide you with support. Okay, awesome. Finally, we're there. We've made it. So we're going to check the free assessment, the marketing maturity assessment. So here, if you scan this QR code, or we will share the link here in the chat just so you have it, you can fill out the survey, and we will share the results in the next 7 business days. So you will get the results and where you sit compared to your industry and to other companies, right? And we will be happy to jump on a call with you and try to provide some practical next steps to improve. Again, you don't need to be a DESelect customer to do this. There are some recommendations we give that are not related to DESelect, because again, the more successful you're in Marketing Cloud, normally the more successful you will be in DESelect if you ever decide to give us a chance, right? So I see Teresa shared the link in the chat. Make sure you save it. And if you fill out the form, we will be in touch as of next week to share where you are and what could be the next steps for you. Okay, great. Then I will just stop here in case you have any question. So please let me know if there's anything you're missing from what we have discussed, or if anything I said wasn't clear enough. I'm here to answer. Okay. Great. If there are no questions, again, if you have any question later on or something like that, you can always send us an email. We'll be happy to help. And if you fill out the form, we will be in touch in the next 7 days to provide you with your results. Thank you everyone for joining. Have a great day and hope to see you soon.